At long last, we're finally here. The series meant to celebrate the franchise's 15th anniversary is finally getting its time on this show. With the final movie, Future, coming out in the next few months, I figure now is the best time to cover these movies since it will take me a while to get through these 5. Originally announced at the 15th anniversary event back in 2014, Digimon Adventure Tri, as it was called, is a 6-movie series that takes place after the first 2 Digimon Adventure series, but before the epilogue of the 02 series. Yes, folks, we have a mint quill on our hands, but hey, I'm optimistic. After all, one of the biggest issues with the 02 epilogue is that a lot of the characters' features didn't match up with how their personalities and goals were in the show, so maybe Tri will answer some of those questions and provide the answers the series itself couldn't. Speaking of series though, Tri was originally announced as an anime series, but around 2015 or so, it was announced that it would be 6 movies, and the reason for why it was 6 movies was never given. But most people weren't pissed over the fact that Tri would be half the length of a full-length Digimon series that's usually 50 episodes. Instead, they were pissed off over the art style for the faces. But I'll get to that in the animation section. Finally, I want to make this clear. While I may have seen Digimon as a kid, I am not a diehard fan of it or blinded by nostalgia for the first 2 series. Not to say that I hate it, just saying that if my opinions don't match up with other Digimon fans who've watched Tri, that's probably because I'm more of a casual fan of it, okay? Okay, let's begin with the first film, Reunion. Our film begins with a cast of 02, save for TK and Kari, basically getting killed off / beaten by this random creature who is only revealed to be Alphamon in the last 15 or so minutes of the film. Why were they basically killed off / beaten? Your guess is as good as mine, because one of the failings of the Tri series, just to get this out of the way, is that the disappearing 02 cast plot point is never really brought up again, save for Ken, but we'll get to that in the second movie. And no one seems to care except for the government agents. Not even TK or Kari give much of a shit about what happened to the 02 cast, and yet for a majority of that series, the two are pretty much allies with them. What the fuck? To use another example, this would be the equivalent of in, say, Power Rangers. The original Mighty Morphin Rangers were killed off or beaten, and Tommy and the replacement Rangers just shrugged it off. I get that 02 wasn't that well received by the community, specifically because of its ending, but if you wanted to focus on the original cast, there had to have been a better way than just defeating the 02 cast and basically write them out of existence for the rest of the movie series. Actually, an argument could be made, why the fuck are they even here in the first place? You could have easily just focused on the 01 cast and then just awkwardly said they were in another fucking region or something. Would you believe me if I said this was the least of the story problems in the Tri series? Yeah, it gets worse. So as said previously, Alphamon fucks off for the rest of the movie until the last 15 minutes or so, so the rest of that time is dedicated to reintroducing the 01 cast 3 years after the final battle of 02 and showcasing their struggles as teenagers nearing adulthood, such as the group not being able to hang out with each other anymore, trying to find their future careers, trying to find a way to make 2 friends happy, etc. But as the film goes on, we also find out that infected Digimon have been appearing in the real world as well as the government's getting involved in these attacks now, so the gang has to come together again in order to stop these infected Digimon and save the world. Oh, and also say this new character may enter Digimon Mekumon from Alphamon near the end of this movie, but frankly I was more interested in the fight than these 2 characters, so yeah. And if you think that these 2 are minor characters who will fuck off by the end of the movie, nope! They're Digidestined, and they try and paint it as something new and shocking, but 02 showcased that they were Digidestined around the world, and this is a sequel to that. Kinda undermines the intent is what I'm getting at. Really, what should have happened is, oh, you're a Digidestined too? Oh, join the club. There's like 200 other ones.
Whatever though, right? It's not a shock, because there's like over 200 Digidestined.
Oh, I thought it was special.
Ha! My nerd thinks she's special!
So yeah, now there are 9 Digidestined in this movie series. Yeah, I sure hope that the rest of the series gives these guys an equal amount of time for character development, and not waste their time in or have character overshadow someone else's development. Because that would be stupid! Speaking of characters though, fuck Alphamon. He's got no personality, his reason for even being there isn't explored until the later movies, and even then that's a fucking stretch, just like the whole him potentially being the reason for the 02 cast getting killed. And all he has going for him is that he's strong. Great, you made a bland uber strong villain that makes Malamyotismon, not his previous form, talking to the manga, more of an interesting villain by comparison. Yeah, can you tell I hate these kinds of antagonists? Also, Mekumon is not that interesting either, she just serves as an object that needs to be rescued in this movie, so let's just move on to the real Digidestined. Tai and Matt's character arcs are basically about them proving if they are worthy of their crests, even if the movie doesn't outright state it. Tai is basically hesitant about being the leader of the group because of the destruction in the early parts of the movie haunting him and not wanting to cause more destruction, while Matt is getting pissy at Tai over the reasoning since not taking action will result in more destruction, and while he is right, it's not exactly a good thing to do to your friend. Basically, their character arc is something the two already went through in the original series, but now they're older. And since they were pretty much the main focus for the movie, I'll quickly go over the others since they aren't given as much focus in comparison. Izzy's a pretty good character, and I like his chemistry with Mimi and TK, as well as Tentomon. Sora is flat, same with Kari, a trend that sadly becomes recurring for the two throughout this run. TK is not that interesting. Joe is also pretty flat, though that could be because he's not in much of the movie. And Mimi was pretty decent. She had her good moments like the ones I'm showing here, but aside from her chemistry with Izzy and the lighthearted nature she brought to the film, that was really about it for her character in this movie. As for the government characters, fuck him! I didn't find Daigo that interesting of a character in terms of actions or personality, and Maki is such a non-entity in this movie, I almost forgot she was even in it. Let's just move on to the next section. Now I can finally address the animation of the movie. So like I said earlier, people got angry over the changes to the faces of the characters since it didn't match up with the style from the original series. So what do I think of it? I honestly don't have an issue with the faces. Really, all they did was just make the pupils smaller. But apparently this got so bad when Tri was originally announced that people went so far as to make fan edits to the original Tri poster. Over, yet again, the eyes being smaller. I'm sorry, but that's fucking dumb. It really isn't a big deal, guys. It's a small fucking feature. So how is the rest of the animation? It varies. It was done by Toei Animation, who's notorious for having inconsistent animation quality, regardless of if it's film or television. Basically, if you couldn't tell from my wording, the animation for Toei is not consistent, and this is no exception. The animation wants to look good, it does succeed in that department, but when it goes off model or looks bad, it really shows. Now, even their CGI is subpar. It looks like late PS2, early PS3 graphics, and may I remind you, this came out around 2015. So yeah, the animation quality is inconsistent, but that kind of comes to the territory with Toei's animation department. As such, I can't really say if the animation is good or bad, because there's a lot of instances in this film where both occur. Let's just wrap this up with audio. On the Japanese side, I like that they remade the intro from the original Digimon Adventure for a modern audience. It honestly sounds really good, while the background music and voice work is also pretty good, I'd say. As for the English dub, it's not downright shit. Hear me out. I appreciate that they kept in the original soundtrack for the dub and not insert their own score like Pokemon I Choose You did, but they did swap out the intro music with a remix of the original dub theme, and that fucking synth, or whatever that fucking thing is called that made those distortions in the song. I'm sorry, but it grates in my ears the more I listen to it. And somehow it's even worse than the repetitive intro that we got for the original series. And it's not even because I wanted to hear Butterfly or a cover of it. I get why they stuck with a remix of the original dub theme. I just wish that it sounded better. I guarantee you that if I were to look really hard, I could find fucking fan remixes that sounded better than this. And since YouTube's copyright is, well, fucking shit, this is yet another case where I have to recommend you look it up for yourself if you don't believe me, because I don't want to risk this video getting flagged or taken down because I used a small snippet of audio from the source. But I digress. How's the voice acting? Well, it's fine. The returning VAs are on par with their original roles from the show, and the new VAs do a good job with the characters they portray, except for one in my case. Maki's voice actress, Shirami Lei, sounds like she's reading directly off the script. Admittedly, just like with other veteran Digimon VAs, that could be the fault of a bad voice director, because I know Shirami Lei is a good voice actress if Fairy Tail and Soul are anything to go by, but it's still an issue in this movie, and I do hope that improves as this marathon goes on. But yeah, when looking at the two, I would say that the Japanese version has a better audio overall, but the dub is not too shabby. Far from it. So overall, Reunion is a decent introduction to the Tri series, but it could have been a lot better in regards to its character and story. But hey, maybe the next movie will improve on these elements. And we'll find out if it does next time when I review the next film in the Digimon Adventure Tri series, Decision. See you then! Welcome back to the marathon, everyone. Today we'll be looking at the second installment of the Tri series, Decision/Determination. Yeah, apparently both of these were used. Kinda funny in hindsight since they couldn't decide which fucking name to use, but I digress. So 5 months after the first film, the second movie was released in Japan around March of 2016, which will become a recurring trend throughout this marathon. Instead of a yearly release like Pokemon, it's twice a year. But I think I've wasted enough time talking about this information, so let's just begin the review, shall we? Our film begins with a bunch of Digi-Eggs getting destroyed with a figure in the background before cutting to Origimon and Leomon fighting. As this is going on, however, we see who the figure really is, the Digimon Emperor. Wow, just fucking wow. In less than 2 minutes, I already want to shut this movie off and go watch something else instead. Fuck off. I mean, what the hell even is this shit? First off, why are Leomon and Origimon even in this movie? Second off, killing off Digi-Eggs, aka creatures who can't even defend themselves. Yeah, you can just fuck off, movie. This doesn't paint Origimon, who actually destroyed the eggs, as threatening. It just paints him as an asshole who kills creatures for no reason. Third of all, the Digimon Emperor. Really? Were you that lazy that you had to rehash an old antagonist instead of make up a new one? And if you think I'm gonna buy that's Ken for even a minute, then you got another thing coming. We saw him get beaten in the first movie and or potentially killed. Again, these movies have still not answered that question yet in this or the later movies, and we're near the end of the fucking series, mind you. So unless the bad guys only took him and left the others to die, and subjected him to the crap that made him the Emperor in the first place while he was unconscious or something, there is no logical reason for Ken to become the Emperor again. You know what also doesn't help this twist? He looks about the same as his Zero 2 counterpart minus the art style. Remember, this series takes place after Zero 2, but before the epilogue, or to be more specific, 3 years after the final battle. You seriously mean to tell me that in 3 years, a teenager who has likely reached puberty by now, given his age in Tri, doesn't look any different than he was in Zero 2 at age 11? Give me a fucking break. But you know what makes this stupid twist even worse? Well, aside from the fact that the next movie basically confirms that the Digimon Emperor isn't Ken, I know, what a fucking shock. The Digimon Emperor doesn't even do much in this movie, let alone the series. Hell, that scene I mentioned earlier, he didn't even do that. That was due to Origimon getting corrupted by the infection. Oh, and like Alphamon, he only really makes a big appearance in the last 15 minutes or so of the movie. But it's even worse here, because unlike Alphamon, he just stands around in the background and lets Imperial Dramon fight the enemies. Yeah, the guy who was in the first scene of this film, and was the guy who instigated this fight near the end of the movie, isn't even doing anything in it. Are you for real? Hell, despite kidnapping Mekumon, he just lets her go after the fight's over. Almost like it didn't really matter to him or something. And yes, I know that it may have been because he wanted her to see the fight and affection and crap, but that's an assumption for one. And second of all, he didn't need to be there to make that happen. You could have just fell into the distortion portal, had Palmon and Gomamon chase after her, and then fight the stupid dragon that appears in the last 15 or so minutes of the film. Oh, and speaking of Mekumon, let's get back to the story. Oh, wait, that's right. That's the only scene related to the actual plot for about 20 minutes or so. So what takes place in between this scene and the next story-related scene? Well, maybe it's a character study, or maybe some character development. Alright, maybe continuing the Matt and Kai character arc since it didn't get wrapped up in the last movie. Hot spring scene!
Poggers!
Okay, it's not the act of fan service that annoys me. Hell, that's why in my Lucario review I didn't get on the movie's case over that film having a hot spring scene, because it served its purpose and didn't take up a lot of time when compared to the rest of the movie. But my issue with this film doing it is how long it goes on for. I get the intent of the scene in story, celebrating May's introduction to the group, but when most of the scene delves into hijinks and pretty much fan service for 20 straight minutes in a 75-minute movie, that is something I take issue with, because it feels like the time isn't being managed all that well in this film. Again, I get the intent, but I think the execution could have been handled a lot better. So when we get back to the plot, it's a bit weird. Now, since this movie's poster has only Joe and Mimi and their Digimon in it, one would assume they would be given the main focus, right? Well, each of them do have a character arc, Joe trying to move past his life as a Digi-Destined, while Mimi's arc is about her self-centered nature and the problems with it. But they also have to balance that out with scenes of Matt and Tai getting pissy at each other, Leomon coming back, preparing for the festival, fighting Origimon, and then the blowback Mimi gets for trying to push him back into the portal but ends up injuring a helicopter. The people gradually viewing the Digimon in a more negative light, ignoring of course the numerous times they saved the world, but whatever. May and Mimi slowly becoming friends, the Digimon entering a costume contest, the battle near the end of the movie, and of course, Mekumon turning evil at the end because she got scared. So yeah, if you ignore all these little storylines, then yeah, they're the main focus. But hey, at least Leomon doesn't die in this movie. Wow, couldn't even last one movie. And he was so fucking pointless to the overall story as well. Great, just lovely. But hey, Mekumon's evil now, so we got more movies, right? Who cares if the reason is basically she got scared of seeing Leomon's infected form? We now have an antagonist to continue our movie series. Oh, we already have an antagonist? Well, we want a new one, so let's make it the fluffy kitten who has no indication or really any build-up to being evil, because we needed to do something in this series. I'm sorry, but I really fucking hate this twist at the end. And even if the reason she went down this path isn't because of her being scared, basically, this still feels like a cheap way to force her down this path of being an antagonist for our heroes to stop, because it felt like there was barely any foreshadowing to build up to this reveal. It felt like a last-minute decision to create a sequel hook, and I'm sorry, but I feel like it could have been better executed than how it played out in this film, especially since, well, Meicoomon doesn't really do much in this film aside from doing cute stuff. And sure, that's one way to prevent people from thinking this creature wouldn't turn evil, but that's really about it in terms of potential foreshadowing / build-up. And even then, the other Digimon do this during the film as well, so if that was meant to be potential foreshadowing, they still fucked it up. As for her owner Mei, I wasn't all that interested in her character. Oh sure, she has a big introduction in this movie. Funny enough, it's during the fucking fanservice scene, but whatever. But she didn't really seem all that interesting as a character to me in terms of personality, aka the nerdy girl stereotype seen in tons of anime with not much added on to it, except that she's a decent artist. And her actions, aka running away from several fights, screaming Meikumon's name, and basically being Mimi's assistant, despite this film giving her a lot of screen time. Seriously, what's her struggle? What is her role in the story? What makes her stand out from the other Digidestined? These were questions I was asking as the film went on, and it never really gave me an answer despite giving her a lot of screen time. As a result, nothing really stood out about her character that made me go, yeah, Mei is a great character, I want to see more of her, or go, oh no, Mei lost her Digimon, I cared about their bond so much. I do hope that this issue will improve as time goes on, since I'm sure they wouldn't introduce her for no reason, but for now, Mei's character is not all that interesting to me. As for the story itself, well, like Mei and Meicoomon, it wasn't all that interesting either. It certainly existed, but in terms of advancing this weird fucking plot they have, that's about it. So instead of focusing on this plot, the film instead focuses more on the issues with the Digidestined itself, and those are, not absolute shit. Sure, on the one hand, Matt and Tai didn't really develop that much in the first movie, and despite this movie giving them screen time, they don't really contribute much to this film except for getting pissy at each other. Seriously, why did Sora pick Matt as her lover again if he's doing this shit to his friend? But on the other hand, I found Mimi and Joe's character arcs to be decently handled. Despite not being given as much screen time as I would have liked, and the resolutions to their arcs feeling a little bit rushed at points, I kind of liked seeing the two grow as characters throughout this film, and I do hope that when I rewatch the remaining films, they will do a better job with developing the remaining Digidestined, and or a better job with time management for the scenes related to these character arcs. Oh, and the other characters aren't all that interesting either. They exist, but that's about it. Not really all that great this time around, which also includes Leomon and the government agents. Then again, if you have a movie series with 9 characters all trying to have relevance in this movie, of course a lot of the characters, both main and secondary, aren't going to be all that interesting / great. It's almost like it was a bad idea to have this many main characters in the first place. As for the remaining plot threads, they are the meh or just bad overall. Leomon coming back felt kind of pointless since he didn't really contribute much to the story except dying. The build-up to the festival was just boring to me, and again, the twist at the end was just dumb. Speaking of dumb, how is it that the animation has gotten worse than it was in Reunion? Ignoring that they reused the subpar CGI for the Digimon evolution scenes in this movie, there are a lot more moments of really bad looking animation than there was in the first film. Oh, and did I forget to mention the scene where Mei and Mimi are dancing and they just show a series of images panning across the screen? Yeah, because when I think of dancing, I think of still images. Give me a freaking break, movie. Oh, and hi, random barrier inside the distortion. Would like to see you in an earlier scene. But yeah, like I said in the reunion video, the animation is still inconsistent in terms of quality, but I've noticed more instances of bad animation compared to the first movie, so I would say it's slightly worse than Reunion's animation. Audio-wise, not much has changed on either front. A lot of the soundtrack is the same in the Japanese version, same with the opening and voices, so not much I can say about that. While the English dub retains the same theme song as the first movie, some issues with that can be applied here, and a lot of the voices are still about the same in terms of quality, which also means I still find Maki's delivery in this film to be the equivalent of reading directly off a script. Yes, I'm aware this could be due to her VA giving off a subdued performance due to her character, but I'm sorry, it still comes off as reading off a script to me. But if that was the intent, great, you got me there. And like I said in my last review, I do think Shiramile is a good voice actor, so it's not like I'm saying this because I hate them. Far from it. I'm just not a fan of this performance. So yeah, with all that said, let's wrap this up. Overall, decision / determination, whichever one you want to call it, is not that great of a film. The story is incredibly weak, the characters are not all that great, and the ending feels like a really weak way to keep the series going. I really wanted to like this movie, and there are good traits about it, but it's ultimately weighed down by a lot of bad stuff / elements that this film contains. So yeah, as of this point in time, I would say that this is the low point in the Tri series, and that is a damn shame. Hopefully the other films will be better than this disappointment, and we'll find out next time as we take a look at the next installment of the Tri series, Confession. See you then. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Tri Marathon. Today we'll be looking at the halfway point of the series titled Confession. Well, gee, I already confessed to being a casual fan. What else is there to confess?
that this joke is predictable as fuck. So yeah, there isn't much I can say about the backstory of this film, other than my friends and I getting really pissed near the end of the movie because of the final battle. So let's just dive in and see if this movie was worth the anger all those years ago. So our film begins sometime after the ending of the second movie. Most of the main cast is doing what the audience likely did after seeing the second movie and trying to process what the fuck happened, while May goes off to cry about it. But when she breaks down at the school, Mimi and Sora go off to help her. Okay. That's a good thing to do for a friend who's upset. So naturally, after this emotional breakdown, they take her home after the school day ends and not to a place of major conflict, right? Oh man, they are shitty friends. Seriously, your friend just had an emotional breakdown in front of you. Why the fuck would you take her to the place where your friends who just witnessed a murder from her Digimon would be? That's like taking a friend who just had a panic attack to a highly populated area. Alright. So what's the main plot? Well, Meikumon is quickly infecting the electronics all over the place, and the main Digimon are getting infected by the same virus that turned Ogremon into a monster. So they have to stop Meikumon, or else the world will be in danger of losing their electronics due to the death of the digital world, or some crap like that. Basically, all that's important is that they fuck it up, and the digital world gets rebooted to deal with Meikumon's infection, causing the Digimon to lose their memories. Until you see the final part of this movie where you realize that Meikumon is still around, basically rendering the reboot pointless, except for the Digimon losing their memories, because this film reveals that Meikumon was basically the source of the infection and can easily infect the digital world again. It's almost like the reboot was a stupid fucking idea or something, especially using it in the third movie of a 6-movie series. Also, yeah, nothing says growth like going back to basics, am I right? Fuck this story. It is so mind-numbingly stupid, and as the film went on, I started to care less and less about it because it got stupider and stupider. And I think I figured out why that is. Because if these characters weren't hit with the idiot stick, unlike the first 2 movies in the series, there would likely not be much of a plot. For instance, in the first 20 or so minutes of the film, Matt talks to the government agents about what happened to Meikumon and Ken, but instead of telling Matt that the 02 kids are missing, or even the information that Meikumon was the source of the infection, Maki doesn't give him the information, and the scene pretty much goes nowhere. Oh, and to just shut down this potential point, no, it wouldn't really alter the friendship they had with Mei. They made friends with Gatomon and Ken, 2 former villains in the past series. I really doubt much would change in terms of the friendship if they knew the fucking truth. Hell, not even Daigo, who knows Maki is lying, doesn't even go to Matt to tell him about what happened to the 02 kids. Are you kidding me? I know why Maki wouldn't tell them, since at the end of the film we know she's involved with the bad guys, but Daigo not telling them? Really? That is freaking stupid. But if he did tell them, then they could have potentially dealt with that issue and or worked on a solution to fix the problem, and the story would be wrapped up pretty quickly. Another example of this whole idiot stick thing is TK not telling anyone about Patamon's infection. Sure, he doesn't want to lose Patamon again, and this movie states that it might not have fixed anything, which, well, we don't know if it would have or not. But if he did tell them about the infection, they would have tried to work on a solution, probably around the clock, and there likely wouldn't be much of a story. So the film paints him as an idiot just for the sake of having it. It's not even just them. A bunch of the other characters in this acted stupid/idiotic. And if you have to do that in order to run a story, then I'm sorry, but I think your story fails. And while I originally planned on bitching about TK's portrayal in this movie, since him not telling anyone about the infection so that he didn't want Patamon to get in trouble basically sounds like something he would have done in the first series and not now, I have a bigger issue with the idea of the reboot itself, since this film's story is based around the digital world slowly dying, and the best solution being a reboot. My issue being, why even do a reboot? Ignoring how this mucks up the continuity of the 02 epilogue for a moment, why introduce this reboot at all, especially in a movie series with one of its main themes being about growth and progression? By removing the memories of the Digimon and sending the world back to 0, you're effectively going back to basics and doing something fans of adventure already saw, the Digidestin becoming friends with the Digimon for the first time. What doesn't help this idea further is how half-assed it feels. Keep in mind that the reboot was intended to restore balance to the digital world since it was on the verge of collapsing, yet it kept the source of the infection around despite Meikumon being data/part of the digital world. And even if the later movies admit that the reboot was botched for the sake of continuing the story, I still take issue with this reboot because not only does it make the 4th movie effectively a retread/waste of time, but it also seems like this was done for the sake of getting the Digidestin to go to the digital world, which you could have done that without rebooting everything. I think that's my biggest problem with this. They overcomplicated all this when they really didn't need to. They made the infection spread really quickly, they made Takaru incompetent, and put his friends in danger potentially, all for the sake of a reboot to get our characters in the digital world that is still infected. I'm sorry, but no. I am not a fan of this. This feels worthless and dumb in the grand scheme of things, not only from a continuity level, but in terms of the main themes of this series. And since this film's story is centered around this reboot idea basically and everything going to shit, the story suffers as a result, on top of making the characters dumb/incompetent for the sake of having this story. So yeah, fuck the story. Fuck the characters. Not even May is not much better since she spends most of the movie crying about Mekumon despite being told in the beginning that her friends are there for her. And hell, she doesn't even go to the digital world in the final bits of the movie. Nice to see that throughout this movie, and despite being given a lot of screen time, she learns fuck all. The music is about the same on both fronts, so at least there's one positive I can say about this movie. Oh, and the animation is slightly better than the last film, until the final fight with Maycrackmon, that is. Then it decides to shit the bed again. And then smooths out after the fight's over. But yeah, this movie just fucking took a lot out of me. I know I could have talked about the scene where the Digidestined were spending their last days with their Digimon, or how Kara's only role in the movie was to get possessed by homeostasis, or that the villain sucks, again. But by this point, I just couldn't fucking care anymore about this movie. And to me, this is probably worse than the movie that actively pissed me off, like a silent voice. Because at least with that film, it did piss me off with its characters, but I was able to feel something towards it. This film just made me feel apathetic before I hit the halfway point of this film. And when I start to feel apathetic towards something, I just want to turn it off instead of continue it. So I guess in terms of ranking these movies, this film will be number 3. Sure, I had issues with the last movie, but at least I was able to keep my attention and do a decent job of developing Joe and Mimi's character arcs. This film couldn't even do that. Hell, I couldn't even care when Tendamon made his last stand and sacrificed himself to try and save his friends, because by that point, the film had drained so much out of me that I just rolled my eyes at it instead of got emotional towards the sacrifice. So yeah. Looks like I found a new low point in this series. Can I get any lower? Tune in next time for the next installment of the Tri series, Loss. See you then.
Yo, are we seriously doing a Lost parody in this?
Yes, now go there. The doctor's waiting.
Fuck that shit, bye! And that's how I saved Easter. Or something like that. Anyway, today we're looking at the 4th movie in the Digimon Adventure Tri series, and I was trying to put it off as best as I could. So let's just jump right into it. So after the pointless reboot of the last movie, our film begins with a flashback of the original Digidestined before the adventure ones, where they fought against the Dark Masters and lost, as well as seeing the birth of the 4 holy beasts and the death of Tapirmon via the beast giving their power to him, and Megadramon turning himself into a bomb to try and stop the Dark Master. And what a fat lot of good that did, since as we saw in Adventure, they were sealed up by the Dark Masters. Really though, the only reason for this flashback is to establish why Maki did the worthless reboot in the first place, which was to see Tapirmon, but I'll come back to whether or not I like that reunion when I talk about the characters, so let's get back to the story. Oh, wait a minute, that's right! There's barely much of one. Basically, the Digidestined are trying to reform the bonds with the Digimon again, Sora and Biyomon are angsty about the other person, May somehow comes back, the group gets separated for a bit and then reunites before fighting 2 heavily watered down Dark Masters, and then Mekumon turns evil again. That's really about it. Oh, wait a minute, that's right, I forgot about one thing! 4 movies into this goddamn series, they finally revealed the main antagonist! You wanna know who it is? Yggdrasil! That was a main threat in 2 other fucking Digimon series. Seriously though, why is Yggdrasil even here? You have a lot of bad guys already in Tri. Why insert another one? Oh, and spoilers! We barely see this creature in the later movies. So yeah, that was definitely worth bringing in this character. Big and not worth. What was the point in bringing back 2 of the Dark Masters as antagonists? Especially when they are this watered down. Seriously, Machine Dramon is frozen in place by a goddamn rookie level Digimon attack, and Metal Sea Dramon is hurt by a rookie level fire attack. I know that they aren't as strong as they were in the first series because of the reboot, which makes me wonder why they're even in their mega forms in the first place, but whatever. But that goes back to my first point. Why are they here then? Nostalgia? Yeah, because watching the previously threatening Dark Masters get their ass kicked by effectively newborn Digimon was clearly worth it. Just like seeing an unaffected Mekumon immediately go back to being infected again as if nothing was really lost, and seeing May come back only to basically get kidnapped and choked by a guy who licks women against their will. I also love how this film barely answers any of the long-standing questions persisting in the series thus far, like the Zero to Cat's Fae, why Genai turned evil, or even questions in this movie like why Mekumon remembers everything, how Maki and May got into the digital world, etc. But hey, it's okay. Those questions are clearly not important. After all, we got more nostalgia from the Adventure series to milk for all it's worth. Fuck the story. Nostalgia, man. I gotta have my nostalgia fix. And that is probably my biggest issue with this movie's story.
well, aside from the weird fucking pacing and points, it seems so focused on milking stuff from the original series that it barely gives time to continue the story that it already had, while also barely answering any questions from the movies and leaving in plenty of plot hiccups. Sure, we know why Monkey did the reboot, and we know that the reboot was all a part of Yggdrasil's plan to basically keep the Digimon and humans from no longer interacting with each other, even if the later movies screw this up a bit, but whatever. But that's about it, and even then, I couldn't care about any of this. I couldn't care about Yggdragon or whatever stupid plan, and I was yawning during the scenes with the Digimon and Digidestined because it was boring me to tears. And like I said in my last review, that is worse than something that actively pisses me off, because when this happens, I just want to shut the movie off and watch something else instead. Seriously, I just started watching Rurouni Kenshin, and that was able to keep my interest longer than this fucking movie. I know it's not the same genre as Digimon, but my point still stands when it comes to interest. That is fucking depressing. Hell, I couldn't even care when Mei was getting choked out by Dark Genai because she barely did much in the fucking movie. It's like, okay, Mei cried like a baby instead of coming back to the digital world with her friends in the last movie. She somehow comes back in this one, and aside from getting Meikumon as a partner again, all she really does is basically sit around and let Dark Genai kidnap her. Really? Hell, unlike Sora, she doesn't even try to punch him or anything to get away. She just stands there? What the fuck is wrong with you? You know what makes this worse? That all this was done to turn Meikumon into Meicrackmon again. In other words, make her evil again. I'm sorry, but why? You have what you wanted. The world got fucking rebooted, and wait, now you want her to destroy the world? What? Yeah, I know I wanted this reboot and it's all going according to plan apparently, but I'm kind of an idiot, so yeah, just destroy the world now, okay? Thanks. You're a fucking idiot. Seriously. Why the fuck even keep Meikumon around? You got what you wanted. Fucking destroy her. Fuck this flat character. You can easily wipe out the cat since she basically serves no purpose to you now. The fucking reboot happened. Seriously, is this Meikumon's only role in this series? Be an infection source / the bad guy? Fucking really? It's not like she's doing much as a fucking bad guy anyway. She sucks just as much as the rest of them. And again, you have enough fucking bad guys in the Tri series. Stop making new ones. You barely developed these ones. Speaking of Genai, let's talk characters. Dark Genai is absolutely pathetic. He's not threatening, far from being even slightly interesting. The dude is just a pathetic creep trying to make up for the fact that he's got no real personality or intimidation factor by stealing Sora's Digivice and linking her creepily and or sending in weak-ass versions of the Digimon they already dealt with before. And sure, I was right that the Digimon Emperor wasn't Ken, but this pathetic imitation isn't a good antagonist. Not even close. The only reason he's the threat to our heroes is because of the real... Actually, no, that's not even the case. He gets his ass kicked by rookie-level attacks, so even during the reboot, he's not intimidating or a legit threat to our heroes. This is pathetic. Mei is once again flatter than a goddamn doorframe and barely contributes much to the story aside from what I already stated. Sora is still flat, and I couldn't care about her character in this movie at all, and the other Digidestined are just fucking there. Not much I can really say. Sure, they interact with the Digimon, but they don't really leave much of an impression on me as the film went on, which is fucking depressing. The Digimon are also not all that interesting, so let's just move on to Maki. Now, you guys already know I never liked Maki as a character if you saw the previous Tri reviews, but after seeing this movie, I hated her more, but for another reason. And that's because there's one bit of this movie I wish to talk about, and it's something that's been recurring with this character from the start of the series, but it was the most evident here in this movie. The refusal to move forward from what happened. In this movie, we find out that the reason for the reboot was to see Tapirmon again, since he was her partner. Rather than moving forward like an adult would, Maki is what happens when you refuse any help or take action to move forward from what happened in the past. Maki ruined the bond of the Digidestined Digimon, erased a lot of the past actions in the digital world that the Digidestined had a part in, and hurt Daigo, her friend and former ally, at a lot of steps along the way. All so that she could be reunited with a part of her past. In other words, she let the past consume her, pretty much refused to move forward from it, and ultimately ruined the digital world. Not through destructions like the Dark Masters who basically played a part in the death of her friend, but through other means. And you want to know what the saddest part about all this is? This is probably the best scene in the movie. Seeing Maki get this punishment after all that she did to effectively hurt everyone in the digital world in the process, just so that she could see her old Digimon, rather than being a fucking adult and moving forward from what happened as well as get the help she needed, feels like it was well deserved for her character. But yeah, I think you get the idea. I hate Maki and I like seeing her get the karma for what she did in this movie. So why did I spend so much time on this scene? Well, aside from it being my favorite scene in the film, it also firmly established my opinion on Maki as a character. While she has her failings in terms of writing, I now think that my main source of frustration with her stems from the fact that she clashes with an ideology that I have as a viewer, that it's possible for anyone that's suffering from tragedy to move forward, either on their own or with help, instead of let it stew inside them for years. And as I said in the past, if a writer can make me feel this way towards a character, not through terrible writing or anything like that, then I think they did a decent job as a writer to draw out an emotion from the audience. And I think that applies to her. She's not an amazing character now, far from it. But my opinion of her did start to go up thanks to this movie. So let's just move on to animation. Animation is just as inconsistent in terms of quality as the other movies in this marathon, but at least the animation quality doesn't shit the bed like in the second film, so there's that. So again, just okay in terms of this element. As for the audio, again, just about the same in terms of quality. Like the Japanese audio, well, the English one isn't out yet, but I'd imagine it's about the fucking same. Voice acting decent, shitty synth English theme, not much has really changed here. But yeah, Lost really didn't leave much of an impression on me. Sure, the characters weren't downright fucking idiots like the last movie, but it also didn't give me much in terms of substance, except for that one scene I spent a whole fucking paragraph on. It certainly existed, and the characters and story weren't abysmal, but that's really all I can say about it. It's just meh. Geez, so I guess in terms of ranking, it still lost to Reunion. Yeah, I think that's the sign I should finish up this review, so I'll see you guys next time for Coexistence. Take care, and well, if you're ever depressed or had something from your past still hurting you in present day, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's always someone out there who will give you the support you need. And so we have reached the ending of the Adventure Tri marathon for at least a week or so before the final film comes out. Yay! Throughout this marathon, I've seen the movie start off on a decent note, then crash and burn in the next two installments, and then the fourth movie left me feeling really apathetic towards it. Yeah, that's pretty bad on my part. Speaking of bad, though, my last experience with this film prior to the review was a pretty loathsome one with my friends and I. So there's that.
The movie literally moved me!
So how about we just begin this film and see if it's just as bad as that last experience I had with it. So our film begins in 1999, likely sometime after the events of the first Digimon Adventure, where Mei and Meikumon are in the forest playing hide and seek or something before we see a feather in Meikumon's area after she's found. Now, this is where things get messy for a bit. See, this movie explains later on that Meikumon was created from a shard of Apoclumon's data, aka the final boss of the first Adventure series, and it's always been an unstable one. And while that would explain why Meikumon has these destructive abilities, as well as losing its mind due to being separated from Mei and or being scared, though I still find that fucking stupid that it just randomly turned evil in the second movie's ending, but whatever. It barely explains the infection problem it had in the first three films. See, if it was the source of the infection, why didn't it spread 6 years ago in story? This film showcases Meikumon losing its mind in a flashback, yet the infection didn't spread after that? I find that really hard to believe. Hell, it never became a problem after that point? Well, apparently not, since we don't see any other past instance of this for the rest of the flashback. So, yeah, apparently it only happened once in that lab prior to Tri. Okay. Oh, right, that whole exposition scene talking about Meikumon's origin later on presents another story issue in the movie, but I'll get to that when I get there. So Mei Cragmon's a thing again, and despite Mei shouting at her to stop, Mei Cragmon's like, "Now, bitch," and tries to kill her. I thought you only transformed because you saw Mei quote-unquote die. Why aren't you calming down now that you see that she's alive? Oh, right, no, the Pokemon data is preventing that from happening. Silly me. So wait, why isn't it trying to kill Genai then? If it really is insane, what's to stop it from killing him, right? Plot armor? Dipshit doesn't do much in this movie, so fuck him. But nah, let's just have it try and kill Mei and then fuck off after failing to do that. You know, Genai's probably still on the ship or nearby. You could probably kill him. No? You're just gonna ignore him? Okay, fuck you too. So as a result of the evolution, it opens up rifts in the digital world, and the Digimon begin to enter said rifts, ending up in the real world, and everything begins to go to shit again. Oh, you mean like the third movie? Gee, it's almost like what happened in the third movie should have happened in this movie or something, save for the worthless reboot. But unlike the third movie, I'm okay with it happening here. Why? Because in terms of story progression, this makes sense. This is the penultimate act of the series. It's expected for everything to go to hell so that in the climax they can fight the source of all this destruction and then end the series on a happy note, or at least end it with the defeat of the source. This thing is known as rising action if you know about your plot diagrams and shit, where it keeps the viewers on edge as the problem gets worse for the characters, and makes you wonder how they're going to get out of it. Samurai Jack's final season had this with episode 9, and a lot of the later Power Rangers series have this in the first part of the finales. It's an effective way to get people excited for the climax of the series, which is why I have an issue with that being done done in the third movie of this 6-movie series. Everything going to shit and progressively getting worse for our heroes is something that most good stories don't let happen in the middle of it. If the examples I gave above happened in the middle of their series and did it again near the end of the series, it would be kind of stupid, wouldn't it? It's basically the equivalent of having 2 climaxes in a story, and I don't understand the point of it in movies, especially since most of the time, the second climax is basically the same as the first, but with really minor differences. And well, why not just remove the first climax and use that time to build up towards the now main climax instead? It just feels like a waste of time, honestly, and I just don't understand the point of it. I know it sounds like a minor complaint, but this is something that could have been fixed really fucking easily. Anyways, this whole tangent about basic plot diagrams went on for far too fucking long, so let's just get back on topic, shall we? So after the scene of digital mayhem, Hackmon, a guy I didn't mention in the last review because all he did was give exposition, shows up to, what a shock, give more exposition! Hooray! Basically, all he states during the scene is the origin of Mekumon, which I already covered, so I'm not going to repeat it here, as well as stating that Mei and her are partners for the sake of keeping Mekumon's powers in balance, and even the movie admits that the purpose doesn't mean much when Mekumon goes crazy, since it doesn't even care about Mei in that form. Yeah, it's nice to see the movie admit that Mei's only purpose in this series is pretty much worthless when Mekumon goes crazy. just lovely. Great. Speaking of lovely, we also find out that since the reboot failed to suppress it, only now has Homeostasis decided to kill Mekumon. So, let me get this straight. The reboot failed miserably to stop it, and instead of sending out a threat to kill it when it's weak and still has the power to infect in the last movie, you only decide now, when everything is fucked, to kill it. That is really dumb, movie.
Yeah, we could have killed it when it popped up again in the real world, but since it was apparently suppressed despite clear signs of the distortion still being there in the last movie, we just couldn't do anything about it. Sorry.
You're a fucking idiot.
Hell, here's a genius idea. When you rebooted the world, maybe, I don't know, destroy a Pokemon. After all, that shard is likely the reason for Mekumon's insanity, and you admit that it has a shard of a Pokemon inside it. No Pokemon? No Mekumon, or at least that shard. Or hell, if that doesn't work, maybe send someone to purify Mekumon of her insanity/darkness and remove the threat of the distortion and her infection instead of killing it. There. But hey, I get it. After all, there's clearly no Digimon out there that could do that, let alone destroy a being of darkness. Oh, wait. Yeah, Angewwoman in her first fucking appearance destroyed Myotismon in the original series with a holy arrow of light through his chest, and she potentially has other attacks that could potentially kill or purify the Pokemon shard, let alone the darkness inside Mekumon. Just do that. There! Helen has a lot of darkness and crap inside of Mekumon, so we could freeze her in place with that same arrow attack she used in the first series before she fires the holy fucking arrow. And even if it is stronger than Angewwoman, it could at least potentially purify the infection/chaos inside her, or at least a bit of it, and there you go. Or hell, another silly fucking idea. Maybe have it fail, and then require her to digivolve into a Phanimon to finish the job. Oh, but I hear you cry. How would that work if the poster has fallen down mode on it? Well, maybe have Mekumon be purified, have Homeostasis or Yggdrasil if you absolutely have to have him in the movie, be pissed at this and infect Phanimon, turning Phanimon into a fallen angel/fallen down mode, powered by the 2 individuals, or one, either or, and have that be the final boss of the fucking series, and have Mei/Mekumon be involved in saving Gatomon since Kari and Gatomon saved her in this situation. Just saying that there were literally hundreds of ideas before or after the 4th movie this guy could have went with that might have worked better than sitting on their asses and not doing anything about the problem until it's too late, and or sending someone who, as this movie will show, can't even defeat Mekumon in its mega form. Even then, this makes me wonder, was the only purpose of including Homeostasis in Tri just to make it an antagonist for our heroes to stop? Really? You got enough fucking bad guys, movie. Stop it! Anyways, Homeostasis, stupidity, and all the other crap I said above aside, we cut to Mei, what a shock, crying again about Mekumon. Christ, we're 5 movies into this shit, and all Mei has really done in the last couple has been sitting on her ass and crying about Mekumon. Yeah, because that makes me want to like Mei more. Crying about her problems instead of trying to do something about it. No, instead her friends are the ones who have to take action as they remind Mei, again, that Mekumon matters to her, to not abandon her, that they're friends, and all this advice that Mei has pretty much ignored up to this point in the series. And yet, in this movie, it actually works. She does start to slightly grow as her own person.
What?
Yeah, I'm serious. Great! Finally! It only took you 4 fucking movies to do that! But fine, I'll take it! And yeah, outside of Mei and Tai, the other characters don't really add much to this movie and come off as really boring/interesting as well. Even Kari, despite being possessed by homeostasis, suffers the issue as well. So yeah, character element isn't all that great in this movie outside of this too. Great. Fucking lovely. So Mekrakmon attacks some facilities in the real world. Genai sends the Digidestined into the real world so that they can experience the spare some crap. This is like one of the only few fucking things he does in this movie, by the way. He is so worthless. And they're taken in by the police. This guy chews them out over the Digimon disappearing and that they're evil. They say that they are. Basically, this goes on for some time until Daigo shows up and does something other than contribute to Hackmon's exposition attack, and that is take them out of custody and put them in the school for the time being. He tells them that Homeostasis wants to kill Mekumon, despite again not doing anything in the last fucking movie to deal with the problem, despite it clearly still being able to infect, and we saw the fucking distortions. And then we cut to later that night where they spend about 10 minutes telling ghost stories and crap before they talk about how they'll say Mekumon and all that fucking jargon. And while I do take issue with the pacing, there is a thing I like about this scene, and that is when May and Tai have some time to themselves to talk about their bonds with their Digimon and the like. It's a nice scene between the two, helped by the two individuals having good chemistry with the other on screen, and the dialogue from Taizen about stuff you can't see as an adult and vice versa is also pretty decent given the theme of growth and the Digidestin's issues with the future as seen in the series thus far. It might be a short scene, but it does a good job with the two characters in question. So while the 10 minutes I mentioned does have pacing issues, like the rest of the fucking movie, there is one scene in it that I do like. So yeah, another small positive in this movie. And hey, another positive comes up not too long after that. May stands up to Meikrakmon and blames herself for what happened, taking responsibility and action in the same scene. Alright, yes! My opinion of her is starting to get better with this. She's showcasing that she's grown and isn't going to cry anymore about Mekumon. This is really good! Too bad they fucking ruined it in the next scene by having them question if by attacking Meikrakmon again, they'll potentially become infected, even though there wasn't any infections in the last fucking movie, and yeah, fucking spoiler alert, they don't become infected in this either. Almost like they abandoned the whole infected Digimon idea in favor of distortions. Now it's time for a fight scene after an almost minute-long evolution sequence. Fuck off. And yeah, the animation is just okay in this. I'm just gonna flat out state it. While the character models look really weird at points or just flat out ugly, it still flows decently and everything else works about it, so it's like, okay, whatever. I'm not gonna hate on the animation. I've talked enough about it in this marathon. It was just about the same in terms of quality, so I'm just gonna move on. I just figured I'd address that because probably one of the only good things about this fucking battle scene. I'm gonna say it right now. So Hackmon shows up in his Mega Form and kills Mekumon, finally. What the fuck took you so long? But Mekumon goes into their Mega Form and turns into this weird looking thing. Also, apparently Homeostasis wanted them to protect Mekumon, and then they begin to question who their true enemy in all this is. And honestly, I'm asking the same thing. Is Mekumon the main bad guy of this? Is it Yggdrasil? Dark Genai? Is it Homeostasis itself? We're 5 movies in and they can't seem to make up their fucking minds on who they want the primary antagonist to be, and it gets worse by the end of this movie, my friends. It's almost like you shouldn't have kept making new bad guys for each movie and just focused on the ones you had or something. Fancy fucking that. And even if they want to pull the whole Yggdrasil and Homeostasis are both wrong card, it doesn't negate the issue that this film series has way too many fucking antagonists, and or that all of them are bland so uninteresting. Christ! Even some of the Monster of the Week villains in Adventure 1 were more interesting than these guys, and that is fucking sad, because these are antagonists we're supposed to be taking seriously. Fuck! So they have their stupid fucking fight. Jesmon's about to fall on May, but then Mekumon saves her. No, I'm sorry. What? She literally tried to kill her earlier in the movie, and earlier when May was talking to her, she went apeshit instead of calm down. No movie, I am not buying this shit at all. But hey, if we don't have this scene, then they can't fight against Jesmon, and it would just be these two fighting. So screw that. Let's have the Digidestin fight against Jesmon and let Kari be possessed by Homeostasis again before Kari somehow overpowers it and gains control again. Also, Dark Genai is here for some reason. No, it's not explained how. Also, let's just have Mekumon be taken into the digital world instead of just killing her then or using an attack to deal with the other Megas, because as a messenger of balance and stability, Jesmon apparently likes to overcomplicate things. Yeah, good job of killing Mekumon, Homeostasis. You should be fucking proud. So they get back to the digital world. Jesmon is overpowered by Mekumon's Mega. Again, great job, Homeostasis. And then fights Omegamon for a bit before Alphamon shows up for some goddamn fucking reason and fights the two. Yeah, it's not explained why the fuck Alphamon shows up or even why Alphamon wants to defend Mekumon now despite wanting to kill it in the first movie, except maybe that is working for Yggdrasil for no reason since it's never got him answered. But who cares? Let's have them fight Jesmon instead of have a rematch with Omegamon because we need a Yggdrasil versus Homeostasis battle for some goddamn reason. So we cut to Maki in the Dark Ocean for some goddamn reason. And also they fucked up her gun in this shot. The last scene with her in it, it was a stupid looking rifle, and now it's a regular pistol. Consistency! Like Jesmon / Homeostasis, it sucks at its job. And before you ask, no, her scene doesn't bear much importance to the overall story, it's just her going crazy again. So yeah, nice use of your runtime movie. So they fight some more, May gets whiny again, and then they get pissed when May and Tai agree to kill Mekumon. Guys, are you fucking serious? You had no qualms with killing Imperial Dramon in the second movie and fighting Ken before you knew with Genai, so why is this stopping you? Did you forget Imperial Dramon was the DNA digivolution of Davis and Ken's Digimon and he dissipated into nothing? So why complain now? Especially when you were Oh gee, I don't know. Ally/friends with Davis and Ken and their Digimon. But now it's only bad here because Megumon's Mega protected May that one time, and that instantly means it cares about May now and shouldn't be killed. Wormon and V, whatever, fuck them and their partners. We got a cat to save. Fuck off, movie. Also, did you guys just fucking forget what happens to a Digimon when it receives a fatal wound, or what happened to Angemon after he sacrificed himself in the original series? It can be reborn as a Digi-Egg. Even then, you are literally putting the fate of the world at risk to protect a Digimon that they have seen for themselves come back after a goddamn reboot. If it can survive that, it can come back as an egg, and even if it can't, you are literally risking the world ending just to protect one Digimon. Did you forget what happened the last time you ignored the sake of the world for your own selfish desires? The world got fucking rebooted. So yeah, movie, you can take this existential crisis of killing Megumon and shove it. So Jessamon finally decides to try and kill Mekumon, but Alphamon fucks it up and nukes a bunch of the area. Tai is quote-unquote killed, Mekumon is knocked unconscious, and Kari gets possessed by some crap. And no, it's not homeostasis because it's a different glow, so I guess it might be homeostasis and Yggdrasil's will combined. Her Digimon turns into Fallen Down mode, Digivolves with Mekumon's Mega to make a fusion, and then comes out as this fucking thing. What the hell am I looking at? Yeah, so, let's run a tally on how many bad guys we have now in this series. We have Dark Genai, Yggdrasil, maybe homeostasis, Jessamon, Alphamon, and now this fusion called Urdinmon, all of which are still around, and all of which haven't been stopped. And this is how the movie ends, folks, with Urdinmon going into the real world to try and merge it together. We're 5 movies in, we have one final movie, so now they're going to have 5 more bad guys to potentially deal with, stop Urdinmon and their plans to merge the 2 worlds, stop the infected Digimon threat, and deal with any remaining plot threads in the final arc that this film couldn't answer, like what happened to the 02 kids, why Genai turned evil potentially, why it would take the identity of the Emperor, what the fuck happened to Maki, what'll happen to Mei and all this other shit, and the other Digidestined, and their futures. Potentially. All because they couldn't simply stick with 1 or 2 fucking antagonists, and in way too many scenes that came off as unnecessary padding. Oh boy. Fuck this movie. The story is idiotic, the characters, save for Tai and Mei, are flat and uninteresting, and the audio is one of the only few positives of this fucking movie. But then again, the other films have good soundtracks, so it's not even a unique trait this movie has. While it did make me apathetic at the end like with the 3rd movie, and it certainly did a better job at handling the rising action, it is far from a good movie in my opinion. It is really close to the bottom of this list for me because of all the shit that went down in this movie as well as everything else building up to it. It makes me really wonder how the 6th movie is going to handle all of this, because that's the finale, folks. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the final movie in the Tri series isn't going to answer any of these questions and or will have a disappointing conclusion because of all that went down with this fucking crap fest and everything else before it. But we'll see what happens next week. I will try and go into future with an open mind despite how hard that will be, because at the end of the day, I need to give the movie a fair shake. I will judge it as a finale to the whole Tri series, and if it succeeds or fails, I will try to let you know. Pity that I'm ending the marathon on such a low note for this series. I liked Digimon growing up, even if I was a casual fan, so it's kind of a shame to see something I liked as a kid get treated this fucking poorly. There are better Digimon series out there that tell a much better story and have much better pacing and all this other shit than this series, and even better solo movies out there that will give you more bang for your buck than this series. Digimon Tamers, Digimon Frontier, Valley of the Wind, Boy and the Beast. Hell, if you want live action, Creed was way more interesting than this shit. There are hundreds of alternatives than Tri out there for people who grew up with the original adventure back in the 90s, and I really do recommend seeking those out instead of this, because even as a casual fan, I was really let down by these movies. And I guess that's the thing with becoming an adult. Tastes change, and some of the things you never noticed as a child become more noticeable to you as an adult. But, you know what? I don't regret watching Tri for this marathon. While it took its toll on me as time went on, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't fun tearing this final movie apart or giving ideas on how to potentially improve certain bits. It's actually kind of why I wanted to change up the format for this review, because the story just pissed me off so much that I just wanted to rip it to fucking pieces. And besides, finding out and analyzing why something is bad makes me appreciate the things that I love more and more. Like the movies and media I consider my favorites out there, or spending time with my friends or the woman I love after watching something really crappy. So until we meet again, I'm David Grimm, and thank you for watching. The future can be a scary thing for most of us. Whether we dread it, run from it, or embrace it, it's a part of life we all must put up with. Sometimes we have good futures, and sometimes we have bad futures. And Digimon Tri was no exception to this rule. When I first started this marathon, I found that the series started off on a decent note, but as time went on, the series took a nosedive in terms of quality to the point where after the 5th movie, I had little to no hope that the future of Tri or even Digimon Adventure as a whole would be a bright one. But now the day has arrived where the future of Tri has now become the present because the final film has been released. So did it save Tri? Did it make up for a satisfying conclusion after all that happened with the previous films? Well, my friends, the answer to all of that was no. I didn't like this movie. If anything, I considered it one of the worst parts of Tri, and definitely a worse ending than the ending of O2. And at least it tried to make the final boss interesting. Okay, slight correction. I noticed this while editing the footage and all that jazz, and this makes me hate the movie even more now, but holy fuck, did they seriously copy their let's give all our energy to this one Digimon to kill this thing from O2? If so, holy fuck, Tri, you couldn't even make the final battle unique? You had to steal from O2? Are you kidding me? That is so pathetic. Okay, back to the review. Tri Future has none of that. And sure, it's unfair to compare a 6-movie series that reaches 25 to 26 episodes by the end of it to a Digimon series that has 50 episodes, but at the same time, a crappy conclusion is still a crappy conclusion, and they have 3 years to prepare for this. So no, I refuse to give this crappy ending a pass because it has less episodes and less time.
Don't weep for the stupid, you'll be crying all day.
They chose to make it that many, they chose to add in padding for a bunch of these movies, and this is the end result. But let's start with some positives before I rip it to pieces in detail. I liked the scene with Gabumon and Matt, the music was also pretty good as always, and I did like that the 02 Kids plot points finally resolved, and that's fucking it. With the exception of the 02 plot point, the other plot threads are still unresolved for the most part. Who is Dark Genai? No clue. Why take on the appearance of Genai? No clue. Who is Yggdrasil? No fucking clue. What possessed Kari in the last movie that was different from homeostasis? No clue. How did Tai survive while Daigo was pretty much bleeding despite that not making any fucking sense for those who watched the last movie? No clue. On top of that, the story makes a whole bunch of new problems with it. For instance, why did Kari get a fever? The film says that she pushed herself, but all that she did for most of that movie was get possessed and stand around for the most part. Legit though, it feels like they did that to keep her out of the movie for a good chunk of it, yet they kept Mei around for a good chunk of that film as well, despite her also not having a Digimon. Then again, outside of homeostasis, Kari hasn't really done much in the Tri series up to this point. Yeah, nice to see one of my favorite characters, specifically from 02, get treated like a background character. Yeah, no, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. Speaking of Mei, another issue I have with this film is that Meikumon had pretty much all the data for the digital world before the reboot, and that they could get the memories back with a password from Mei. Not only does this feel incredibly convenient to have the solution inside of Meikumon and things go back to normal with the Digimon with ease, but it also feels anticlimactic because they didn't really have to work hard for it. Then again, as I said in my reviews of the past 5 movies, the very idea of the reboot in the 3rd movie felt pointless to begin with since it felt like a cheap way to get them into the digital world, so I guess this was their way to clean up their own mess, even if it was a stupid means to do so. Oh, and this whole idea that Meikumon was so strong because it had so much data inside of it, yeah, so is that why in the 3rd movie before the reboot even happened, Meikumon was able to kick their asses in its ultimate form? Yeah, that part is never really explained in this movie or even addressed. Whoops. Then again, this film makes the claim that Meikumon absorbed Ophanimon when, no, it was unconscious when Ophanimon was in the sky, and the dark energy made the two merge, so frankly, I can't even act surprised that they forgot their own continuity in this shit. Oh, and speaking of stupid, not only is Mei needed for the password to free everyone, but her Digivice also unlocks a new mode for Omegamon that saves the day? Yeah, you can fuck off, movie. Yep, it's all thanks to Mei. It's all about Mei being the light, even though there are 9 main characters in this series, and Kari is the one with the crest of light. Seriously, I want to call this a Deus Ex Machina since it comes out of nowhere and fixes the problem, but that term is thrown around like candy nowadays for shit that isn't even a Deus Ex Machina, thanks to CinemaSins, that it's lost all meaning at this point. But even if I don't want to call it that term, I still find it stupid that Mei is so important to the whole shebang to the point where she gets the most focus and is the main reason the day is saved, when again, there are 9 main characters, and as the previous 2 series showcased, they can make the final battle of the series work without having one character be the saving grace or cornerstone to it all. But unfortunately, this was also a recurring problem with Tri. There was a larger emphasis on Mei and less on the cast as a whole. I know it's hard to give development to a large cast of characters in a short amount of time, but the alternative solution shouldn't be to make your new character be given the most focus, since that is also a terrible extreme to take. Because then you make your new character more important and given more time than the other main characters in your cast, who were ultimately left more undeveloped and not given much time to shine by comparison. And when that starts to happen, I think that should be a sign that you should begin revising your plans. But enough about Mei. How are the other characters? Honestly, I just couldn't care about any of them. Not horrible, not amazing, just apathy. And for the final installment of the Tri series, that is not a good sign if most of the characters, especially the main ones, are just ones I can respond with just a shrug or apathy because we've followed these guys for 6 movies now. I should be excited to see them, but I just couldn't care about them in this film at all. Hell, that scene with Gabumon and Matt, that was one of the only scenes of the main cast that I actually felt something other than apathy because it was legitimately touching to see, showing that Gabumon does care about Matt and Matt does care about his partner underneath his rough skin and persona. It's just a pity that it was one of the only few scenes where I could feel something towards these main characters. TK embracing Kari? I didn't care. Hell, I rolled my eyes at Patamon's comment about not looking because it was honestly just throne-worthy to me. Ty talking to May at the end? I didn't care about that either. Matt talking about going into space? I yawned during that bit. The ending itself? Barely anything happened and barely anything was resolved, plus it left more questions than answers. And as I've stated before, things that make me apathetic are honestly worse to me than something that actively pisses me off, because when it pisses me off, it at least succeeded in making me feel something. Speaking of feels, let's deal with the death of Ordinmon. Actually no, I felt nothing during that bit, so how about Ordinmon instead? Listen, I've talked about this before, and I will say it again. I hate these villains that are just uber strong and have nothing else to them, and Ordinmon is no exception. All it has going for it is that it's uber strong, runs the risk of a potential real-world reboot, which made me shake my fucking head at how stupid that idea was. It just flies around outside of that. Malamyosmon, Apoklumon? Fuck those final bosses. This random creature with tits hanging out and sass on display is clearly way more interesting. Oh, and speaking of uninteresting, Dark Ganai is absolutely fucking worthless in this movie. Legit though, Dick Ganai, I'm so fucking funny. Kills Daigo, who barely did anything in this series, which made his death not as effective either, since I barely cared about him as a character. He spends most of the movie being creepy and laughing his ass off, and he's not even beaten in this movie. He opens up a portal to the digital world and hints at a possible continuation to the series, but honestly, I really hope that doesn't happen. I really hope that doesn't happen. Because if they couldn't tell much of a story in this series, why the fuck would I pay to watch them try it again? Especially when that money could be used on movies that had way more effort and care put into it. And you know, it's funny. One of the main themes of Tri is growth. Yet instead of improving their writing and writing better villains, all 6 of these movies have villains more one note than the original 2 series. That is really fucking depressing. Oh, and if you're wondering what happened to Alphamon and Maki, they're not even mentioned in this movie either. Neither is the Shred of Apoklumon. So I guess their solution to having too many villains in Tri was to basically pretend they don't exist in this final movie. But yeah, Tri Future was honestly a big disappointment and a really shitty way to end off the series. As a conclusion, it barely resolves / ends the ongoing plot threads the previous films had, save for maybe the O2 plot thread, and the other resolutions were handled really poorly or not at all. As the continuation of 0-2, the characters are a lot less interesting than the first 2 series, and the story isn't all that great either and has a lot of continuity flaws, and as a film on its own, the story is terrible, the characters are not that great or interesting, the writing is shit, and the only things I enjoyed were a couple of minor scenes and the music. No matter which way I looked at this film, the film fails in every way, and I will not be supporting any future films with the adventure name on it because they fucked me over once with this project and I refuse to let it happen again. But hey, I'll give it this as a positive. It somehow made an ending that sucks more than O2's ending. That takes some serious effort. And on that note, I'm David Grimm, and thanks for watching.